feel it when you go to work, when you go to church, when you pay your taxes. It is the world that has been pulled over your eyes to blind you from the truth. What truth?
Before this happened to me, I had no idea anything like this could happen. I was awakened by a presence. Then I began to see these faces, and I wasn't quite sure what was going on. There was a long, needle. They said they were going to put this into my head, and it scared me to death.
I started to live in denial that it was even happening. I said, I want to see. I looked up and they started to lift me towards this just enormous craft. It was terrifying. And they're doing something to me. It's not something that's in my head at all. It's real, it's happening.
Before the fall of 1985, I had no opinion about UFOs or alien abductions or anything like that. I probably would have scoffed, actually, if anyone said they'd been abducted by aliens. At the time of my first encounter, we had a country house, very isolated. The property butted up against a large state-owned area of 15,000 acres of forest. And it wasn't actually even on any maps at that time. The private road hadn't been included in maps. We had nothing like satellite photos in those days. So we were just kind of off the grid.
It's great, honey. I love it.
Can I?
Yes. We had enjoyed a lovely Christmas at our cabin. We'd had a wonderful time.
Hey, the weather report says it's going to snow tomorrow.
Yay!
Just as traditionally as you can. And it was just a lovely time.
Sure.
Every night, I went from door to door and window to window, making sure everything was locked. Having lived in the city, I felt very isolated when I was out in that house. And I began to obsess about there being someone coming into the house at night when we were asleep. I would do that more than once, actually, in a night. I would wake up in the middle of the night and do it again. And I was filled with fear. I did not know really why. There was absolutely nothing suggesting anything unusual. But on some level, I knew damn well something was wrong. I was awakened by a whooshing sound. And I heard it. I sat up. Maybe it crossed my mind that it might be the dishwasher. I'd had an alarm system installed in the house, so I was confident that no one could get in. As I woke up, I became immediately aware of a presence. Before I could do or say a thing, I was gone. I was blacked out. After the blackout, something happened to my body. I didn't feel anything. I could feel my core being, my inner self, but there was nothing happening on the surface. I was like paralyzed and I had lost sensation. Then I remember a feeling like going up in a fast elevator. And I saw the trees whipping past beside me. It happened so fast, I didn't get a chance to gather myself together. And I blacked out again. That's how it started. I found myself waking up. I couldn't move. And these figures began to dart around, and I wasn't quite sure what was going on. Then I began to see these faces, big, long, narrow faces with big black eyes, but they were short. It opened the box, and there was a long, like, needle thing in the box. They said that they were going to put this into my head, and it scared me to death. It was devastating. After they inserted the needle into my head, then the really unpleasant part physically began. They inserted something into me. I blacked out. I woke up in the morning, confused. I felt like I'd been in a fight or something. I thought, this can't be true. This is absolutely ridiculous. But it was so vivid. By the time I went to the doctor, I had reconstructed the experience enough to tell him the sequence of events. And he laughed and he said, Whitley, you're telling me you were taken aboard a flying saucer by little men. I thought, my God, I am telling him that. What in the hell could that mean? And he examined me and he said, to be honest with you, Whitley, it looks as if you've been raped. In the weeks following this experience, I was very unstrung. I began to fear that something might happen to my family. I fought with my wife and I tried to get her to go and live somewhere else with my son where they wouldn't be safe from them.
Can I film TV?
No. We're still having supper right now.
But we're not talking.
Then concentrate on eating your food.
I think I was probably quite short with him at times during that period. I was very concerned about them both.
Maybe we should take a trip to the city. Just get out of here for a while.
At first, when the memories began to return, I just couldn't believe them. I thought that I had been drugged by somebody or been hypnotized and had this experience implanted in my mind. I did not want to believe I'd been abducted by aliens. I also had done some research by then and found out that there was a lot of UFO activity in the area. In fact, there was, across the Hudson, there was a whole huge flap of the Hudson River Valley UFO sightings, which was still just in the process of ending when this happened to me. And that was only 30 miles away, 30, 40 miles away. My brother had given me for Christmas a book called Science and the UFOs. In it, I found a description of something that was very similar to what happened to me, and I was shocked. But I still was just scoffing at the idea of alien abduction, because at that point, anything but what might have really happened was what I wanted to grasp on. I wanted it to be something I could understand and handle, but I couldn't stop thinking, what if it's real?
I want you to focus on my pencil.
I was obsessed with continuing because I wanted answers badly.
Barely keep them
And
open.
my life just blew up in my face.
Stop it, please, stop it.
I had a close encounter of the third kind, for sake. When I began exploring how to understand what had happened to me, the possibility of hypnosis became apparent.
I've never been hypnotized before. I don't know if it'll work on me.
Well, let me worry about that. Even under hypnosis, no one's gonna make you say anything that you don't want to. Okay? You're the one who's in control. Okay?
Okay.
All right, I want you to focus on my pencil. And while I do this, I want you to relax. All right, relax your face. Relax your neck and shoulders. And now I want you to relax your eyes. You can barely keep them open.
When I went into hypnosis, what I saw was so vivid and so unexpected.
Something went past the window.
Something went past the window?
Something big. Someone else is in the room. Who the hell is that? Is that somebody there? It can't be. I don't want to be there. I don't want to be there. Oh, God, stop it, please. Stop it. Don't let me take me there. Stop.
It's okay, Whitley. Look, you're safe. Okay?
And that was why I was so paranoid and unstrung during the October-November period. But I had no conscious memory of it until it burst unexpectedly out in that hypnosis session. What I saw was so vivid and so unexpected to both of us that I basically think there's no way it wasn't a production of memory, not of imagination.
Do you want to stop?
No. I was obsessed with continuing because I wanted answers badly. I had a close encounter of the third kind. For sake, I can't just ignore this.
Okay. Now it's the night of October 4th. You've just woken up. And tell me what you see.
Under hypnosis, I saw one of these alien figures standing in my bedroom. It touched my head with a wand that had an electric fizzle to it. And it flashed terrifying visions. The first one I remember is a vision of my son. Something is happening to him. And I had the impression he was dying or being kidnapped or something at the time, and it was very frightening. The second vision was a vision of my father dying. He died previously of a heart attack. He was already dead. And the sense of sadness I felt was profound. I loved him deeply. There was a third vision involved, an apocalyptic vision, the end of the world, and of everything being destroyed, either in a nuclear war or a natural catastrophe of some kind that looked like a war. I remember the sense of despair and helplessness that it brought me.
I've got to decide how I feel about this. I can't deny it anymore.
When I began to gather myself together, I had met by this time other people who had had similar experiences. I began to ask myself, what did they want from me? I speculated about whether or not what seemed like a psychic attack could have been warnings. I have remembered more and more, not only the vision of the apocalypse, but other warnings and consistent warnings, not only to me, but across the whole community of people who have had this experience. A lot of them get the same warnings, that we're in trouble, that our environment is in trouble. So I'm not alone in that. And that has become a really essential feature of my current life. In March of 1986, I had what was a seminal moment of change for me in this experience.
Oh, God.
After it became clear to them that I was trying to engage with them, they began to respond in various ways. It was the most extraordinary experience I've ever had.
I remember seeing a bright blue light come under the door. I said, okay, let's do it. I just want to get to the bottom of this. I had no idea what I was in for.
In March of 1986, I had what was a seminal moment of change for me in this experience. The sensation I felt when I tried to move on that night was like I was being impeded by something that really slowed you down, like a thick tar or something. When they are there, you have a feeling that is almost impossible to describe. I was terrified, but I sort of forced a grin onto my face and tried to smile. I couldn't smile very well. I wanted to try to show them that I was not dangerous, that I was something that I wanted to know more. And there was a change then. After it became clear to them that I was trying to engage with them, they began to respond in various ways. They were trying to build a bridge, I think. I think that was the first moment when there was any kind of real exchange. I wouldn't say that, oh, this is definitely aliens. I would say that it was real and that we don't know what it was. That I am quite certain of. The public reaction to my book Communion was very complex. Literally, as soon as the book was published, letters that week, literally the week of publication, letters started coming.
You got more letters?
We had well over 200,000 letters over the years. We probably had closer to 500,000 over the years.
I don't know what to say to them anymore. I don't have all the answers.
Maybe just understanding the questions is enough.
After I began to read them, I realized there's something happening on planet Earth that we do not acknowledge. We don't know what it is. Is it aliens? Is it something to do with us and something about the way we are that we don't yet understand? I don't know, but it's real. In the late summer of 1994, it became clear that we were running out of money. We began to not be able to pay our mortgage, and it became clear we had to leave. And so, at the same time, though, that this was happening, I was having one of the peak experiences of the whole thing. I'd begun meditating in a cabin because people had found the place, and there were other people out in the woods at night looking for the aliens with flashing flashlights up in the air and such childish stuff. And so I meditated, and I stayed in the house and meditated from then on. I didn't really want to be disturbed by that. And one night there were these thuds on the roof right above me. And the next moment I could feel a presence in the room. At this point, these years later, I was easy with their presence in the house. I wasn't scared of that. And I finally said, I want to see you as you really are. And I didn't see anything. And so I said, well, this is it. I'm leaving this room now, and I'm leaving it forever. I will never return to it, because tomorrow we leave, and we're leaving forever. And I left the room. I went to bed. I lay in the bed, still hoping something would happen. Suddenly I saw a light up in the front yard. It was a bright, beautiful white light shining on the grass like moonlight, but 10 times brighter. I got up and looked out the window, and this light with rays coming out of it, and the rays penetrated my body, some of them, and I could like taste his presence in the rays. It was the most extraordinarily beautiful experience I've ever had. The next morning, we left the cabin, and the experiences have never been like that since then. People who don't have open minds and are dismissive of all of this miss out on one of the most wonderful, frightening, dangerous, beautiful things that you can know. I did not ask for this. I did not know about it. I did not expect it. I did not want it, that's for sure. But it burst into my life without warning, and it's never left me since.
Take from this what you will. This does happen to me. It has been happening to me all my life, and you don't have to believe, because I know the truth. My earliest memories of being abducted by aliens were when I was very young, 5, 6 years old. I was living in Ohio, and it was kind of in the middle of nowhere. Our nearest neighbor was a mile or two away. There was, nothing for miles. I would be in my bed, usually. I would hear voices coming down the hallway. The voices were of my parents, so I got comfortable thinking it was my parents. I remember seeing a bright blue light come under the door, and shadows, actually, of something standing outside the door. And I realized that it was not my parents coming in. When they got close, I'd see those black almond-shaped eyes just staring right at me. Emotionless eyes just looking at me. And they would extend their hand, and I would grab it as if I was really comfortable with them and had done this many times before. And they often would let me take my favorite stuffed animal with me. As a child, I didn't realize that these beings didn't visit everybody at night. I thought when people went to bed, the bald man would come for everybody, and it was just a normal thing. I decided I would, draw them and write down things that I could remember. I was always into art, so I really started to try to draw them as best as I could.
Hey, sweetie. Hi, Mom. What are you drawing? The bald man.
What bald man?
They're my friends. They come visit me at night.
It didn't start to get uncomfortable until I started talking about the bald men to other people, whether it be classmates or family members, and they just said that it's not real, there's no such thing, you're just dreaming. It was very frustrating being told that this wasn't happening when I knew it was.
Okay, Audrey, I need you to relax.
As an adult, I would remember bits and pieces. I remember them coming in. I remember them doing something to me so I couldn't move. I remember them bringing me somewhere else and being other places. But the things I didn't remember were, what were they doing to me when they took me? And I said, okay, I need to find people that could maybe help me.
Close your eyes. Take a deep breath.
Regression was a great tool to bring back the missing pieces, the memories.
We're gonna focus on a room.
Didn't even think about it, didn't get educated on it, said, okay, I'm gonna get hypnotized, let's do it. I just wanna get to the bottom of this.
It's a basement. You're gonna walk down the stairs.
And in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, this isn't gonna work. Those memories are gone. I'm never gonna remember what's happening. I didn't know anything about it. I had no idea what I was in for. 3, 2, 1. Audrey, tell me what you see. Tell me what you see. What you see. My first hypnosis session was the most traumatic experience that I think I've ever had in my life. I wasn't ready, I think, to see what they were doing. I wasn't ready to accept it. The bald men were just terrifying to look at. The people that wanted to help me, they did this wonderful hypnosis session. They got all this, detailed accounts of what's going on, and this was great stuff. But I never came back for a long time. I just left. I didn't want to think about it. They gave me a copy of the tape. I never listened to it to this day. I try to forget. And I just ran from it for a long time. I started to live in denial that it was even happening until they came for me. I was just getting ready to go to bed. My window was open, and all of a sudden I started hearing the shade flapping. And so I was sitting there, and I had the feeling that they were coming. I call it the heebie-jeebies. I get it. And it's like a pure state of panic, anxiety, but at the same time, almost like I feel like I'm magnetically attracting something to me. I can't explain it, but it is some kind of attraction. I got under the covers like I had as a child for so many years, thinking that would help. And I don't know, something kind of snapped inside me, and I said, I want to see what's coming and what has been coming for me for so long. So I didn't hide under my covers this time. And as I sat there waiting, after the wind came the lights and the humming sound. I woke up at a time I wasn't supposed to wake up. As I grabbed him, I heard, "Watch out for the mother." Once the light came into my window, I knew that it wouldn't be long. I started to feel twitching in my body and my arms moving by themselves, like muscle spasms almost. And then buzzing sound, it's real steady. It was a kind of fear I can't even explain. Total confusion, anger, what are they doing? And then of course, why? Why? I tried to scream so somebody could hear me and maybe help me, and I couldn't. There was no sound that would come out. For some reason, I started to say, I'm gonna fight this. I'm not letting them take me. As I grabbed him, I heard in my head, "Watch out for the mother." And then I let go. I felt something stick me, and it was a burning sensation instantly, to a point where if I moved any muscle, it was like my whole body was on fire. It's weird because they kind of position you the way they want, almost like they can do it with their mind. Once you can't move, they can move you. So as I was levitated off the bed, and I could feel myself moving straight ahead, and I knew straight ahead my dresser was there with a mirror, and it's backed up against the wall. I realized that I was going right through it, and I could see My feet go right through the mirror. I realized that I'm outside and it was really, really bright. I looked up and I saw the ship lights. And they started to lift me towards this just enormous craft above my house. It was terrifying, confusing, surreal. Like, this can't be happening to me. And I went close to the ship. And that was the last thing I remember. And then I just blacked out. All of a sudden, I was awake and aware. I noticed a man walking around me, and I looked at him, and he looked at me. He felt familiar to me for some reason. He touched me and was no longer a man. At this point, I asked it, and when I say asked, it's completely telepathic. You somehow know who it's coming from, and even if there's a group of them. Finally, I asked, after all these years, why are you doing this to me? And he said that they were working on altering my DNA. When he was talking to me, he actually cared. And that was a feeling that was really confusing because, of course, if you care, why do you abuse me? If you care, why are you doing this? But then I got to ask him, and he said what he was doing. This was like a breakthrough. I got to talk to him, and it's been years. It's almost like that first question that I got to ask was just the beginning. There was a machine. It was strange looking, but I knew it was some kind of a clock. And it was counting backwards. I heard the words war, and then just blacked out completely. And that's all I remember until, I woke up at some point. I don't know how long it was, but I regained consciousness. I'm still on the table. And they're doing something to me. They had a machine that actually physically came and removed my eye. And when they pulled the eye out, I noticed that there was something coming to where my eye had been into the socket. This big, long needle, they put it into the eye socket, did something. The next thing I recall after seeing my eye get removed was just being back in my room. The whole time I'm coming out of whatever they do to me, I would remember bits and pieces. I scrambled to my journal and I wrote down what I remembered. I don't usually even look at my journal because it does tend to bring back a lot of the fear and the emotions. And, sometimes it's meant to be forgotten for good reason. Years later, I started to have physical problems from it and actually had to, undergo various surgeries because of unexplained scarring in my tubes and ovaries and uterus. There was just, the doctors didn't know what it was from. There's just scarring in there. I never told the doctors what I knew it was from. It's not something that you can say, all right, hey doc, this is what's going on, especially back then. I had this time in my life where it just kept happening and happening and happening, and it really picked up for a couple years. This encounter started as it always does. When I woke up, there was one of the Greys standing at the foot of my bed, and I saw him there, and then just blacked out completely. As I wake up this time after I blacked out, I was in a strange place. I realized that I was in a cocoon surrounded in gel. I started to panic. One of the Greys realized I was awake, hurried over to me, and I remember seeing a needle coming at me, and it was a fear I can't even explain. I realized that I was in a cocoon surrounded in gel. I looked through the gel and the cocoon. I'm looking out into the room, and I noticed that there's some Greys in there. I couldn't tell exactly what they were doing, but I was distracted by a small girl. Looked like a small child, but it was what appeared to be a hybrid of a human and a Grey alien. She was really strange. She wasn't dressed in the same clothes that Greys wear. She was dressed like it was old-fashioned clothes, maybe 1800s. It was confusing. It was almost, surreal. As I was looking at her, she looked at me, and I felt almost like a kind of connection with this child, and she came right up to me. It was not just an interest, it was a connection, like a deep connection, and it felt a familiarity with her. One of the Greys realized I was awake, hurried over to me, and I remember seeing a needle coming at me and right through the cocoon. And then I just blacked out. And she's just always had a place in my heart, I guess, for, from the experiences. I always remember that child. It's like they're preparing us for something that's going to happen in the future to mankind. It's a preparation of sort. There's areas of the brain that we all know we don't use. They could be storing the information there. They said that when the time comes, we will act and know exactly what to do. Whatever's going to happen, I think that as abductees, we're being prepared to assist others with whatever change is coming to this planet. I try sometimes to say, okay, this is all in my head, and I continue, and then something will happen that reminds me that it's very real. I've had times where I just step back and say, okay, I'm gonna just, join the human race and just do normal things, and this is not happening to me. But they won't let me. Can't say that I would have chosen this if I had, had a choice, but for whatever reason, I'm going through this, and it's not my imagination. I've had a lot of time to think about what they did and how angry I was, but if they were really going to do it to hurt me, then why would they take the memories away? Why would they care? Why would they care? They would just let me remember.
I think that literally everybody is afraid of this. I think it happens to far more people than remember it at all. I see it as a part of the human experience that we cannot acknowledge.
Most skeptics and people that don't believe are probably the ones that believe the most.
People are eager to reject the things I've written about.
And they are so scared of it that they have to put it out there that it's not happening. But when they look up in space at night, I think they really know that there's not a chance that we're the only species here in this universe.
And it's an unknown that every single one of us senses is there.
And I know that the population of people are being able to start talking about it. It's like there's a worldwide awakening happening right now.
That there is something happening on this earth to human beings that is powerful, and real, and that we either don't or can't acknowledge, even to this day.
If you don't believe now, then just wait a little while, because the proof is coming.
UFOrbs. Join the search.
You can feel it when you go to work, when you go to church, when you pay your taxes. It is the world that has been pulled over your eyes to blind you from the truth. What truth?
Like needle, they said they were going to put this into my head, and it scared me to death.
I started to live in denial that it was even happening. I said, I want to see. I looked up and they started to lift me towards this just enormous craft. It was terrifying. And they're doing something to me. It's not something that's in my head at all. It's real, it's happening.
Before the fall of 1985, I had no opinion about UFOs or alien abductions or anything like that. I probably would have scoffed, actually, at anyone who said they'd been abducted by aliens. At the time of my first encounter, we had a country house, very isolated. The property butted up against a large state-owned area of 15,000 acres of forest. And it wasn't actually even on any maps at that time. The private road hadn't been included in maps. We had nothing like satellite photos in those days. So we were just kind of off the grid.
It's great, honey. I love it.
Can I?
Yes. We had enjoyed a lovely Christmas at our cabin. We'd had a wonderful time.
Hey, the weather.
Before this happened to me, I had no idea anything like this could happen. I was awakened by a presence. Then I began to see these faces, and I wasn't quite sure what was going on. There was a long...